what will it cost me? That is often the very first question that we hear from folks over the age of 50 who are getting a divorce in Wisconsin. And it's not just about lawyer fees. In a gray divorce, you're untangling decades of assets right as you're nearing retirement. I'm Jeff Hughes, family attorney and co-founder of Sterling Lawyers. And in this video, we will walk through the real costs of gray divorce in Wisconsin so that you can prepare, protect your future, and avoid common financial traps. Let's begin with the filing and baseline costs. These are the basics. Court filing fees in most counties often are around $200 to $250 just to file the divorce petition. And service fees often add another $50 to $100 to serve the divorce papers on the opposing party. And there's also the mandatory parenting class fee for those who have minor children. And this cost is between $25 and $50, again, depending on the county. And these are the non-negotiables, but they are only a drop in the bucket compared to what's next. There are attorney's fees, and this is the big wild card. This is where costs can often balloon, especially in gray divorce cases. Uncontested divorces with basic asset division usually run between $4,000 and $8,000 per spouse. And moderately contested divorce cases, this is where there's some agreement over assets and some disagreement over support and assets, perhaps. This usually runs between $10,000 and $20,000. And of course, there are those very highly contested cases involving businesses, valuations, large retirement accounts, and pensions, real estate, all of that. Those usually run between $30,000 to begin with up to $100,000. We once had a client in his early 60s going through a divorce after 28 years of marriage. And at first, it seemed amicable until disagreements surfaced about pension valuation, ownership of their vacation cabin. And what started as a manageable $8,000 case turned into a $40,000 legal bill on his side alone because of delays, multiple appraisals, and back and forth negotiations. And the more you fight, the more you pay. Court time, depositions, financial subpoenas, they all add up. Then there are retirement divisions. Now these are hidden fees and delays sometimes. For couples over 50, retirement accounts are often the biggest asset, and they can be the trickiest. 401ks and pensions need a QDRO. A QDRO is a qualified domestic relations order. The cost per QDRO is between $500 and $3,000 per account, depending on the complexity and the plan requirements. I recall one couple, they had 4 retirement accounts between them and delayed getting the QDROs finalized. And by the time it was sorted out, one account lost over $8,000 in value due to market dips that they had not planned for. QDRO delays can cost you real money, not just in fees, but in lost investment returns. And there's also business or property valuations. If you or your spouse owns a business, has rental properties or real estate beyond the marital home, oftentimes valuation experts are involved, and those fees typically run between $2,000 to $15,000. And forensic accountants, if those are needed, are between usually $200 and $400 per hour. And a typical real estate appraisal, like for a rental or another residence, that's usually between $400 and $800. That's very normal. This is essential oftentimes in long-term marriages where commingling of assets has occurred, meaning that the separate property, like if a business that was started before the marriage, may have now turned into marital property. And there's also maintenance, popularly known as alimony. These disputes can turn really difficult. In marriages of 20 years or more, Wisconsin courts may and usually do award indefinite maintenance when there is a disparity in income. This means that you could be paying or receiving monthly support for years, possibly a lifetime. Even if temporary, alimony payments can range between $500 and $3,000 plus per month, depending again on the income disparity between the spouses. And litigating, fighting over maintenance, that adds legal fees, especially if vocational experts are brought in to evaluate earning potential and earning power. Now, there's also the tension between mediating and litigating. Mediation, that typically costs between $2,000 and $6,000 total. Now, that's shared between the spouses. And there is a type of divorce process called collaborative divorce, and that typically is between $5,000 and $15,000 per spouse. Then there's the most difficult one of all, and that's the litigation. That easily runs $25,000 to $100,000 plus total. That is per spouse. Once we had a couple both in their late 50s. Now they opted for mediation after an initial consult, which we were so glad for them. They worked through everything, retirement, property, and support. In under 3 months, they finalized it all by affidavit. And their total legal costs, just under $9,000 total. Now, if you contrast that to another type of gray divorce case where the spouses refuse to talk to each other, that one cost over $75,000 combined and took 2 long years. And finally, there are the post-divorce costs that people often forget about. One of the big ones is health insurance. If you are dropped from your spouse's health insurance, you now have to go on COBRA, and that can cost between $800 and $1,500 per month. Then, of course, there are the separate household expenses, running 2 houses now instead of 1. Then there are estate plan updates to wills, trusts, beneficiary designations, and usually that's between $500 and $2,500. And in conclusion, there are the emotional costs, like adult children choosing sides that may not be financial, but they can still leave long-term scars and wounds if divorce gets ugly. Now, gray divorce isn't just emotionally complex, it's financially massive. Knowing the true cost helps you make smarter choices and avoid mistakes that can drain your life savings. In our next video, we're going to break down exactly how much regular Wisconsin divorce costs and how to keep it affordable. So watch this next.